Hello, and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 34, Galactic Contact and Humanity's Next Big Leap with Amateo Ra. We are so excited to have our dear brother Amateo with us here to talk about galactic energies. We have not talked about this on our podcast yet, and so this is a whole new, fresh topic for us. And I have known Amateo for, wow, it seems like centuries, but it's
Probably has been.
actually been less than a year in this incarnation.
Yeah.
I first found Amateo and began working with him. He is a very effective, amazing business coach for entrepreneurs and healers and coaches and really next level people who are here to make a huge contribution to the planet. And very quickly realized his deep metaphysical education and knowledge, the deeper inner work that he's been doing for so many years, and then also his galactic work, which I think he was kind of keeping undercover for a while, and in the last year has been really allowing it to be more out in public and seen and experienced. And so we're really excited to have you here, Amateo, and to be able to share some of the wisdoms that you have around this topic.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Nowhere I'd rather be than talking to both of you. And yeah, it's a privilege and a pleasure. Really excited to jam today and to take this conversation wherever it really feels called to go. Would love to dive into some of the galactic conversation and what that means and why it's important and why it's relevant, and maybe touch on a little bit of the shamanic element too. So it is all game, baby.
Absolutely. Amateo, thank you so much. It's really wonderful to have you here. And for those of you who may or may not be aware, I was telling everybody when I got back from visiting Kat, oh yeah, I went into this galactic channeling activation thing, and Kat and I got to work on people and open up the channel. That was Amateo's event. So it was so fun to finally meet you in person after hearing so much about you and becoming more familiar with your work. And personally speaking, since that event, I have had some really interesting stuff going on in galactivation land, which will probably come up over the course of our conversation together. But anyway, there's plenty of stuff brewing in my world.
I'm so happy to hear that. I think one of the things that makes this work so unique is the quickness in which it catalyzes people who are open and available. Yeah. It's rare, I think, for these things to be so dramatic in how they rapidly affect and change and open people to these energies and this consciousness. So, you already being such a steward of mediumship and an open channel, and also just such a connected, powerful shamanista. It seems like this work was able to settle right at home with you. So thank you for welcoming it in, because you're as good of an ambassador as any.
Thank you. I gratefully and fully receive that reflection.
Yeah. So Amateo, let's just start with some kind of basic, what are we talking about here when we say galactic energies, and what exactly is that?
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
Good question. Yeah.
People are like, what is going on? Well, I'll start that conversation with sharing maybe a little bit of context and a little bit of background, because I think that could help. When I was a kid, I was just a wee lad. I was like 4 to 6 years old, and I started to have some really intense experiences where I was being pulled out of my room by beings, and I would feel them come into the room. There was times where I would see them outside my window or at the foot of my bed. I had a bunk bed, and it was all wood. It was a nice bunk bed, and there was a little slat. And I apologize. I would be on video with you guys, but I'm in the Maya Riviera, so my video quality is not top notch. But there was this little slat that I could see through, and I'll never forget the silhouettes of the ET beings that I would see on the other side of the bed. And all of a sudden I would get a little nervous and anticipatory, and then I would just black out in a way. I would just go dark, and then I would wake up and I would be on an operating table. I would be being worked on. And this was where it all started. I've had to kind of piece together what was happening after the fact. I didn't really know when I was young, and I was a kid. Part of me felt like it was normal. Part of me felt like it was really strange and absurd, and I couldn't talk about it. So I did keep it a bit of a secret. That might already kind of give people a little bit of chills and uneasy feelings. And rightly so. When it first started, these beings that these were abduction experiences, meaning that I was being abducted, I was being worked on, they were doing genetic testing on me. I affectionately say, not exactly sure why. I know that I have a powerful divine connection. I definitely think there's people with a lot sexier genetics than I. So I didn't know exactly. I was like, man, if these aliens want a fucking six-pack, then they're going for the wrong guy. But if they have other intentions, maybe I'm the right one. They want some sick calves or something. I'm not the guy. So I didn't really know what they were working on, but basically they were a little bit of a scary experience. And at a certain point, I was about 8 or 9 years old when the experiences changed. It changed, and I was no longer being abducted. I was now having contact-E experiences, meaning that the beings that were visiting me and working with me and taking me up on the ship were more positive beings, benevolent beings. The other ones were part of a larger genetic program. It's a long story. We're not going to get into all of that just now. We can dive into that more if we want to. I'm totally happy to talk about it. But at some point it changed. I was having contactee experiences with benevolent extraterrestrials, and they were very sweet and very loving, had a lot of angelic energy and beautiful light. And this started to reshape my thinking and how I saw the world and how I saw other people. And when I was a teenager, I was doing artwork and channeling and trying to understand what was happening to me, because I was hearing things and connected to information, voices, and energies that were beyond this world. And that was very apparent to me. As time went on, I started to unpack and explore this with real rigor. I went to work with a lot of the most profound and well-accomplished galactic channels on the planet to get trained by them, to kind of understand what happened to me, to make sense of it all. But in the process, something happened that I didn't expect. I went through some very deep healing and trauma release, and on the other side of that, my channel started to blossom open. And I think that seems to be a universal story. The clearing of trauma to the opening of the channel. And I know that for Kat and I, when we facilitate, that's the direct work that we do. We do the clearing to get the opening. And so we share in that belief system. So that started to blossom, and the next thing you know, I was being able to have full-on conversations with these beings and visualizations where I would see myself on the ship, and I'd be taken up in my dreams, and they would be showing me things and technologies and teaching me and showing me how to see the world and the science of oneness. And what I came to understand, to start to wrap up this thought, what I came to understand is that there are levels to the divine universe. And when we think about working with divine energy, when we think about working with highly evolved consciousness, a lot of times we think about angels or archangels or going straight to God. And by all means, that's a great thing. Highly encourage that. But what I came to understand was that these beings are some of our closest relatives. Mm-hmm. They exist in the near future. They are highly evolved. They understand some of our material challenges. They understand some of our human, diplomatic, societal challenges in ways that angels and archangels don't, because they're energy beings. These are physical beings, semi-physical beings. Not only that, but I believe that we are closely related to them. And so when I started to open my channel, it became apparent that this was the path of least resistance. This was the easiest way for me to access the most influential, relevant, and relatable spiritual information that I could find, because it was coming from beings that had a much greater handle on the human experience. And when that started to become apparent, I started to be able to use that a lot more in the work that we do. I was very actually outspoken about it for a while, and then I went underground about it, as Kat mentioned, to build a bit more of authority in the entrepreneurial leadership world, to then unpack this and have it be less taboo, or be able to be more influential as a figure with this material. That's a bit of the summary of how this has come about.
Wow. Thank you, Amateo, for speaking to the richness of your experience and the way in which it has unfolded for you. And of course, is still continuing to unfold.
Definitely.
I love what you were referencing in terms of the energetic compatibility. And I think that's really important. I guarantee we're going to circle back around to that, because Kat and I have talked a lot in previous episodes about working with different spirit guides, working with animal guides, and calling in help and support from different varieties of energy beings. And we have referenced this. I remember I told the story about the wolf channeling that I did, and how it affected my system to channel an animal. So yes, animal in the same way embodied on the earth plane, but very different from my system. So there's always this compatibility element that comes into play that I'm really fascinated by. So we'll circle back around to that for sure.
I love that. I think it's very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the consciousnesses have their own morphogenic field, right? So compatibility, and even the diversity and compatibility, it's very intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also really appreciate this, our opening up people's consciousness around, the galactic, having more of a connection toward technology, toward kind of life on Earth, bioform reality, which, when I work with people, explaining that a lot of people don't really understand that, when we're working with beings like angels, and, beings that have not been incarnate or haven't been incarnate in such a long time, that they have a very, they don't, like, their comprehension is not focused on our physical day-to-day life. And
Right.
so I love that you are bringing in this information around, okay, well, what if we're actually starting to connect to these energies so that we can utilize this information technology to be able to support our individual and then our collective lives on this planet, and maybe solve some problems.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really key. Well said. I posted a video. Vice actually just did a little micro documentary on a Galactic channel from, I think, London or something. And each channel is a being that's from the Ayel. And it was a little bit of a clickbait hit piece. It was a little bit of value-rich window into this world. Overall, I'm just really glad it got exposure. It has almost 1 million views on Facebook, which is exciting. But one of the things that's, so I posted this video and someone commented, kind of questioning the viability and importance of channeling. Like, do we need more meta spiritual concepts? And if these are highly advanced beings that we can communicate with, where is the tangibility? Where are the new technologies? Where are the new, why are they not just downloading blueprints for software, or who knows what the fuck? And I think that that's a valuable insight. That's a great question, because it's like, where is this? And my thoughts on this is that it's a progressive evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a place now where we can use our internal consciousness software to make contact. That's as far as we've reached. We are not at a hardware technological contact point. We are at an internal software contact point. So what are we getting? We are getting upgrades primarily to our internal software. We are getting the upgrades to the vehicle and medium for which we are making contact. So that makes perfect sense. When we reach a point when we are ready to have virtual digital computational contact with these beings, they will be able to send us information that is more hardware based. You know, what I think we are on the verge of, or what I'm really inspiring those leaders who are called to this work to do, is to be at this bridge of working with these beings to bring in tangibility. And we're seeing that, you know, we're seeing in the workshops that we do and in the private sessions that I do, they're directing the future of people's companies, their technologies, the things that they're developing, their programs, their curriculum. You know, if you say Tony Robbins hasn't brought through anything of value because he's giving you personal development frameworks, then you don't see how those personal development frameworks have completely reshaped the leaders, the thinkers, and the influence of our time. All of the presidents go to Tony Robbins for advice. You know, it doesn't matter who they are. All the presidential candidates. Mother Teresa went to Tony Robbins. He was her coach for like 10, 20 years. If those things aren't meritable to influence and impact, then what are? So I think we're seeing the stage of evolution where this communication is going to become much, much more tangible and reach deeper levels of prototyping into proven technology that we can download. We're seeing that. There's already proof of that, and I could talk about that more through people going to festivals and doing psychedelics. And, you know, Google was created from that. Well, where did those ideas come from when you're out in the middle of the desert where people are seeing UFOs and they're in heightened states of consciousness influenced by art? Something's talking to them.
Yeah.
What's
I love that. I want to bring our viewers' attention to the idea of a container. I was actually just speaking with a client. We had a consultation immediately before jumping on this, where we were talking about the container in which all this energy is landing for her. And I said, imagine a pipe. Like, you've got a pipe that is full of gunk from years of toxicity, from years of, you know, certain belief systems, karmic structures, energetic signatures, all this crap filling up a pipe. And all of a sudden you want to pump, you know, like 1,000 cubic square feet of water through it. Like, that's not going to work, right? It's, you know, going to be spurting out the edges. The pipe might crack. So what you do is you shut off the water, you clean, or, you know, you slow down the water, you clean out the container, and then you can pour the water through. And we're at that pipe cleaning phase in humanity. We're doing the personal stuff. We're doing, like you were saying, Amateo, the upgrades to the personal system, the physical system, the karmic agreements, the energetic signatures, all this stuff. And what I'm witnessing in my clients, and maybe Kat and Amateo, you can speak to this as well, but it is starting in the more personal realm first, and then moving out into the greater field. So of course we can't handle, you know, that massive amount of information right now. Our pipes would break open, but we're getting there. We're building the infrastructure in order to hold this much information, this much energy coming through to the planet.
I love that. I mean, I think it goes the same. It's like, if we could send information backwards in time, if you could send Benjamin Franklin a computer, he wouldn't know what to fucking do with it. You know, like, what is this? You know. So I think you're right. I think we're becoming more capable. They could send us something, but if it doesn't have the context of where to land, then it's lost in translation. So I do think that we are upgrading our container, and we're creating the means for this data to actually transfer, because we're still very primitive in a lot of ways, and we got a lot of catching up to do.
Absolutely. And this, you know, this concept of context. Oh goodness, sorry, my light was went out. We are, you know, we're looking at, you know, okay, so we kind of had some ships we were seeing, and there was sort of this was happening, and then more and more we're seeing more people speaking out on YouTube and documentaries and stuff in mainstream media talking about extraterrestrial contact and you know, the ancient aliens and crop circles. And it's you know, if they just showed up, we would freak the fuck out. And so it's like we're slowly getting used to the idea that this is a possibility before we can actually be thrust into being able to handle it in reality.
That's absolutely right. And actually, there's now Fibonacci patterns of adoption rates that are being documented. This became really easy to document with the internet because we finally had the computing power to document that. That you would see that there was these jump points of adoption as the internet started to grow. You know, at first the internet wasn't for everyone, and then it started to spread and spread and spread, and now it's well acclimated. You know, I can go to a beach resort here in Mexico, and everyone's got Wi-Fi. Didn't used to be that way 5 years ago. Maybe it didn't even used to be that way 3 years ago. So, you know, the adoption rate of galactic consciousness is exponentially increasing. But at the same time, I would say that, you know, it's the 1995 of the internet to 2017, that growth curve, that's where we're in right now when it comes to galactic consciousness. We're at that very open level, but at the same time, you know, we're going to blink and it's going to be 2035, 2050, and we're going to see this catch up. I think it's going to happen a little slower than we think and way faster than we think at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I want to make sure that we talk about is, you know, in my work, you know, helping people, because I work with lots of different beings and helping people who are healers, work with doctor spirits and different kinds of energetics. Michelle does this too. And, you know, that when we're working with beings that are of the light, that are in that consciousness, in that sort of oneness frequency consciousness, that we have to actually ask them to show up and to invoke them to come and you know, participate in our lives and in our works. And you know, if we're not actually you know, ever thinking about it, you know, there are a lot of people who do have contact experiences that are sort of out of nowhere. But for those that are maybe interested in this, I would love to hear some, I don't know if we want to say guidelines, but, you know, where do people kind of, you know, get started with this kind of inquiry into maybe they've had an experience in the past. I know when I first started channeling, the first thing that came through were galactic beings, and pretty quickly they scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you guys, no more. And they went away because they actually listen to what you say. So, you know, there are probably some people who will listen to this who will be like, oh yeah, when I was scared of that thing that happened and I was like, no, go away, leave me alone forever. And now they're maybe interested again. How do they start to crack that door open?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think something you touched on that I want to hit on initially is that it's natural to have resistance to these beings, even if they are truly of the love and light. And the reason that is that they are incredibly conscious. They're very aware. They see through things, not by trying to call you out or whatever. They just know a lot. And they have a kind of awareness that leaves you feeling incredibly transparent, and their capacity and bandwidth for processing creative information so far exceeds our human capacity that when we do start to contact with them, the level that our creativity starts to ignite and fire up can be a lot to manage. So, you know, one of the things that I think both of you do so well, and I just encourage this a lot. I mean, first and foremost, learn from you two. Like if there's one thing that I could say, like, learn from you two, because we do high level contact retreats, and they're usually, you know, our access granted retreats, they're usually for people who have an energetic foundation. so that they can open these energies up and know how to regulate their system, their creativity, without getting overwhelmed. But if they don't have that foundation, this isn't like I'll pay you to abduct me to get me off this planet kind of thing. Everyone who has that intention going into this work gets schooled, because they realize that what they're actually here to do is to work with them to elevate humanity and the planet, not get off the planet.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, Amateo, is that starting with Galactics isn't necessarily the best or easiest idea. And it really does help to have an energetic foundation, either through being a practitioner of an energy healing modality, having practice, working with channeling other earth beings, for example, or so like animals, right? Like I channeled animals first. And that was so easy for me. And so it became a very natural progression for me then to step into the galactic, working with the galactic energies, which really only happened very recently for me. And yet when I did, it was not an overwhelm at all.
Great.
At the bare minimum, having access to energetic cleaning, purification practices, qigong, practices that support this, what you're talking about, this stabilizing, grounding practices, stabilizing this energy, because it can be destabilizing when we first tune into it, and can take a little while to be able to navigate it effectively, for sure.
Yeah. And in my experience too, they almost, maybe it's just my personal experience, but they like to push the limits of your consciousness. They like to stretch your perception. They like to test the level at which they can raise your vibration, and they love to see how much your creative capacity can actually manage and channel through, and how you can refine it and do it with some real elegant alchemy and artistry. And that's a lot. I started channeling the planet first. It was Gaia first for me. I went through a deep trauma release, and then I even though I had those contact experiences and they were communicating with me, the conscious channeling, when I decided that it's when I was going to initiate the conversation rather than have it just come to me, because they first started to visit me again later in my life, and that started to change things. But when that started to happen, it was planet first. And so, before you start trying to talk to all of the relatives, talk to your mother first. Don't try to just learn everything from your cousins and all of that before you get right with mama first. And so that's really mama and her constituents and all of her children and I love that, the animal spirits, the elements, the ancestors. It's important that galactic consciousness is a branching experience. Working with earth energies is a rooting experience. If you want to branch, you first need roots. And so that's my recommendation is sow your roots first, and then you can branch. And the deeper your roots go, the better you'll branch. And that will create the solidity and the dynamic tension of the connection that you're looking for, so that you can use the energy, the consciousness, to actually build, create, and implement things on the planet.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. I want to circle back to why. We've kind of danced around this a little bit, but really explicitly stating why would we want to connect with these galactic energies? There's so much richness there, but you were talking about elevating the human consciousness. What does that mean? The technology stuff. Let's go into that a little bit.
It's a great question. Well, I mean, let's be real. We are exhausting our natural resources. We are running over the planet with our human population. We are catalyzing mass extinction events and endangered species. Our oceans are toxic in certain regions. We have garbage piling up everywhere that I can see. We are in a natural resource crisis, And we are either on the brink of going extinct and bringing other species down with us and initiating a multi-million year planetary immunological recovery that may or may not include us, or we innovate solutions in the nick of time to make a transition happen in order to catalyze our survival, the protection and preservation of this precious sphere that we came down to experience, incarnate on, and to elevate the entire planet's vibration. And if we're going to embark on such a ambitious project, which I believe there are millions of people who are working steadfast, they are sacrificing their sleep, they are sacrificing their comforts, they are giving everything they can. They are sacrificing their resources. They could be enjoying life with what they have, but instead they are committed to the mission of changing things for survival more than they are even just the enjoyment of life itself. And they enjoy that, but that's part of it. They get a lot of fulfillment out of that. It's a different kind of joy. It's a fulfillment. It's a service. It's a stewardship. But that's what we're up against. So in this, we're grasping for creative solutions and answers to our existential personal crises, as well as our deep wounding and trauma that's in the way of us being able to implement this change and innovate this change. But we are also needing a plethora of creative innovation. Well, where is this going to come from? I don't believe it. I believe it comes from two primary things. It comes from the past folding into the present, and it comes from the future folding into the present. And when we talk about galactic consciousness, it's us connecting to highly evolved beings that exist in the future so that their wisdom, their insight, and their technology can fold back into this moment and enhance us and ensure our preservation. And according to them and the sources that I have, they say that we make it, that we survive. But then we make it. Yeah, bonus. We make it and we survive because people like us start speaking up about what's available for us to connect to in order to receive these insights and use them for real, personal, and global systemic change.
And I love this. And this is why I have been so excited to join forces with you and work with you in the access granted work, which is bringing some heavy hitters into alignment with this kind of information, right? Okay, that's a good why for why we would care. Why do we care? Why do they care? Like what if we're so primitive, right? We're like, and I've heard people say, like, we're so unevolved comparatively to beings of higher consciousness. Like, why would they care anything about us and our little planet and what's going on here?
I think that that's a valid consideration. I'll put it this way. If you were to be, what is that called when you carry someone else's child?
A surrogate.
Surrogate. If you were to be a surrogate mother for someone else's child, and you went through the entire pregnancy process, and you developed the emotional, chemical, and genetic bond with that child, would it be easy for you to not have any relationship with it for the rest of your life?
Probably not.
Probably not. I believe that we have a deep genetic tie to these beings. I believe that some of them are a part of why we are the way we are. And I think that even according to them, it's not even what I think, according to them, we are part of a much larger galactic genetic program where we are given a planet at a certain level of consciousness with a certain level of genetic potential, and we are put in a simulation game, with time to see how we can evolve into the highest form of what's possible. But that's an ascension process. And when we ascend, they also go through their own ascension. Mm-hmm. So this is, in a way, I see us, it's like their boat can't set sail if the earth anchor is just being pulled under the bottom of the ocean. Mm-hmm. The earth has to sail too in order for them to move. We are intertwined. We are a family. And this is a no being, no soul, no planet left behind kind of an agenda. This is a universal, we all rise together into the higher realms. And so I believe that they have a vested, somewhat even selfish interest to support us because it supports them too.
Mm-hmm. And it's super loving too, so yes, vested and somewhat selfish perhaps, but also everything that I have brought forward from channeling these galactic beings and everything that I've heard from other people who channel these galactic light beings, we are well regarded here on Earth. It's not like, oh gosh, you're the annoying, like slacker planet, right? No, it's
not at all.
Yeah, right. And so, there's like only as strong as the weakest link, right? And, that's putting Earth in a pretty bad light here, and that may or may not be the case, but everything that I have heard that has come out of my mouth from channeling these beings is, we love Earth. We love you. We honor you. There is no planet that is quite like Earth either. Like, there are other similarities or, other whatever, but there is no planet that is quite like Earth. And we are very unique in this system of galactic nations. So it's so humbling. And right now I feel myself tearing up a little bit, just how much love is held for us when, we have all of the galactic nations and, we're not the slacker planet. We kind of are, but we're not. We're working and we're doing the best we can, and we are so supported.
I love that, and you're absolutely right. I was expressing that with a bit of direct veracity on the seriousness of what is at play, but at the deepest level, this is a homecoming and a reunion of love, and it's beautiful, and they deeply love us. I mean, it's wild. And I don't even think we're the slacker planet. I think we are we're the domino effect in the lower densities. So we click over and it catalyzes a systemic universal upgrade. And so, I think they look to us. I don't think a lot of them went to this level of primitiveness for their evolutionary trajectory. I think they started more advanced and they're still more advanced. I think we took on one ridiculously primitive evolutionary mission. And I believe that they hold us in very high regard for being so courageous and also being able to make it. And they do love us for that very deeply because it's a huge service.
Yeah. That speaks deeply to the shamanic ties that inherently come from working with galactic energies. And Kat, you heard about this. Amateo, I spoke at a conference in the beginning of May where I was the token shaman at this conference. So I got to speak about shamanic death and rebirth. And I spoke about the shamanic death and rebirth of all of humanity and coming to Earth as this, coming to Earth is our death, right? Because we forget who we are and we are separate. We lose the unity consciousness. It is that deep underworld initiation. And I think that's really speaks to exactly what you were just saying, where, we chose this very primitive, this very like forgetting, stepping away from unity consciousness, going into the darkness form of initiation that ultimately holds ridiculous potential for alchemy and expansion, really, because, when you go through the death and rebirth, that's some of the biggest potential right there for catalyzing expansion and ascension.
I think so too. I mean, I think that's even why the shamanic work is taken off so profoundly, is because it gives us the the opportunity to finally alchemize the deepest, darkest shadows that we came here to process on a galactic level and a cosmic level. Because, you know, I often say that there's a grand conversion going on, and they've taught me that is that there's a conversion, and this conversion is, we're here to be alchemists. We're here to process this darkness into light, because that is some of the great work here. And the work that we're all doing shamanically is changing the planet. The people aren't the way they used to be. The planet's not the way they used to be. It's you know, news aside, this is such a better, more peaceful, loving planet for all of the work we've done. I think it's working exceptionally well. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Amateo, I would love to just touch on really quickly, just a little bit. You know, you spoke about your early experiences and how maybe they weren't so full of love and light. And you know, I've had quite a few clients. I know that people that have followed me, we've had these conversations around the really negative galactic experiences that they've had. And also, you know, things around MLabs, and you know, we're always hearing about the negative, you know, the negative alien, you know, infiltrations into our, you know, governments, and sort of these dark forces which give people a lot of fear when they're sort of starting to approach and consider these works.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Just,
well, you know,
Justin Bieber is a reptilian, and you like, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Katy Perry's a dinosaur or something.
Yeah. Everybody turn into reptilians, and
right, all the newscasters with slithery tongues and shit. You know, I'll put it this way. One, I think actually those two celebrities we mentioned are doing great work now. I think they really found themselves and they found spirit. I'm really proud of them for being vocal. I'm not someone who thinks that all galactic beings are what we call source OS, meaning they are oneness. Their operating system is of oneness. I believe that there's two primary operating systems, and it's a little binary sounding, but it's the source OS, or what we would call maybe the Lucifer OS, the separation, exhausting energy, parasite oriented operating system. Now, someone will ask me, okay, well, that sounds so binary. Is it 50-50? You know, is it 50% loving, beautiful, enlightened beings and 50% these reptile demonoids? And it's like, no, not at all. I mean, we're on this primitive planet, and it's not 50-50. It's 95, 99%, maybe 90% minimum well-intentioned people. I always say, if you go into a stadium of 50,000 people, how many of those are you actually worried about would steal your belongings or abuse you? I would never go to a stadium worried about that, even if I was in a different country. People, you know, travel the world going to Olympics. They don't get worried about that. Usually, if there is an event that is like a bombing or something, it comes from one individual who wasn't even in the stadium. They were doing something malevolent on the outside. So you look at this, you're not seeing that even humans at our level of consciousness are a 50-50. We're so far beyond that. So when you look at a galactic level, I think that you are looking at a small fraction of the beings who have ill intent. And their intent is not necessarily ill, it's what we just call self-willed. It doesn't mean that it's in their self-interest, it means that it's only interested in self. There's a difference there, you know, there's a difference there. It's a difference that I benefit and we all benefit, which is what we call omni-considerate. You know, I think these high-level extraterrestrials are omni-considerate, the majority of them, omni-considerate. They make choices and decisions that benefit all of existence, all beings, as their frame of consciousness. And then there's those who are only interested in keeping themselves in survival because they're not able to connect to the infinite energy that is oneness. They have disconnected from that, so they have to feed off of other things to stay alive. And those energies have infiltrated this planet at different periods of time. And that infiltration has corrupted the media. It has created mind control mechanisms. It has created implants, frequency gates, you name it. There's a number of things that have come in and created a corrupted force. What we are doing, what you two are doing as light workers, as shamanistas, is we're going and saying that stuff is now expired. We are no longer of that program. We no longer are oriented in this way. As Kat, you always say, I am a sovereign being. I use that mantra so consistently. I love it so much. We are sovereign beings, and we are reclaiming that sovereignty. And the more that we do that, and the more we purify and cleanse our vessels, the more we release these things, the more we do this deep clearing, the more these energies move off of the planet and the more the light can get in. And I think that that's the process that we are in. I think that if you associate all galactic consciousness as potentially negative, then I would really look at that, or the majority. You know, there's so much fear mongering, even from physicists, that, oh, if they're going to come to the planet, they're going to wipe us out. Why the hell would they? That's just so myopic. Why would if they can mine asteroids for trillions of dollars of precious metals, and they can extract water out of floating ice barnacles, why do they care about annihilating humans? I just don't think it makes sense, especially if we're that primitive. I think that you have to look at it like this is a universe that supports life and has death as a necessary mechanism. But it is a life support system. And I believe that without question, the majority of these beings are aligned and an intrinsic part of this life support system.
Thank you.
I'm kind of curious if we can jump a little bit to what do some of these awakening to the galactic experiences look like? So Amateo, you shared with us a little bit from your early years. I'm kind of curious, are there any other stories that come to mind? And Kat, I mean, I know you have some of this in your realm as well. And I have just recently, within the last few weeks, had some of this happen as well that I'm excited to share. How about I start?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'd love to hear your experience. Okay. I want to hear your experience.
That's really what's going on here. I just want to tell this story. Okay. So Kat, you've heard this story because I called you saying, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what, blah, 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 blah. So Amateo, to catch you up, we went to Access Granted. And also historically, for those of you watching who may or may not know me, I started channeling years ago. You know, I don't even remember exactly when it started coming through. And I was channeling animals, I was channeling ancestors, I was channeling, deceased people, I was channeling spirit, I was channeling angels, and I never really worked with the Galactics. It wasn't coming across my radar so much. I was open to it, but it never felt like my thing, really. So within the last year or two, it's been starting to come more into my sphere. And I was having some, the Syrians in particular were the ones who were connecting more with me. Then we go to your Access Granted event, and I'm just excited because I love doing all this kind of stuff, and I love working with Kat, and I was excited to meet you. So great, awesome, everything thumbs up. So we get there and facilitating this channeling and opening for all these people. Again, nothing I haven't done before, and just, okay, open the channel and I can tell, oh, you've got someone who wants to speak. Okay, you've got someone who wants to speak. Okay, you're good.
So good. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I love playing in the space with you. You're fantastic at creating the space for it all to come through.
Thank you. It was so fun. And it was, just being so immersed in this room full of everyone opening so successfully and beautifully and doing clearing for those who needed help. And then the space was open for me to share a little channeling. So I did. And we heard from the collective galactic nations. There was no one specific who was coming through. It was very collective. And then we left. And Kat worked on me on Tuesday, right before we left for the airport. I set an alarm so we could leave for the airport on time. And she's working on me and saying, oh, the Ashtar command is coming through for you. And I say, who's the Ashtar commands? Again, I was new to them. But she tells me, okay, the Ashtar command is really coming through very strongly for you. They're going to work with you and you get to call on them. And then I felt
just as you're talking about them. I'm starting to twitch.
Right? They came through so strongly, and I feel these things in my hands. I'm saying they're putting things in my hands. And I described to Kat what I'm feeling and what they're supposed to be used for. She says, yep, that sounds like the Ashtar command. Great. And so now I have these tools. I don't know if you can see them, but they're in there. That I've been using with clients since then, and I've been using on myself, and it's super fun. And then that was it for that. But then the interesting part that I'm still working out and still getting drips of information on, about a week and a half after that, I was out running, and I run a lot. I like to train for races, and that's part of my moving meditation, my embodied meditation.
Cool. Love that.
Never in my adult life have I fallen while running. Never. Not even while we had these epic snowstorms up in Portland, and I was running in the snow and slush and ice still because I had to train. Never, I didn't fall even then. And yet, about a week and a half ago, I was out running. I trip on something maybe this high, like a centimeter high. And I've tripped before, but I stumble and I catch myself. I could not catch myself. It was the weirdest feeling. I felt myself, literally, it's like my feet contracted and I couldn't stop myself. And I remember just being completely astonished about what's going on. I never fall. And I land and I, kind of jar my body a little bit. I took a bunch of skin off both my hands, but, nothing's sprained, nothing's too hurt. And I get up and I'm a little bit shaken, but okay. So I decide, okay, I'm going to go run the rest of my run, just, shake it out of my body. And the rest of the day, my body felt so weird. I felt awful. It felt like I'd been, completely shifted out of my body. I was barely connected to my physical sphere at all. So I go that afternoon to the gem fair because I needed to pick up a stone for a client. And I saw a friend of mine there who's a psychic intuitive. She's a vendor at the gem fair, and I see her every time, and we have great conversations. And she always tells me, "Oh, here's a piece of information," or whatever. So she looks at me. She says, "Are you okay?" And I tell her, "I fell on my run today." She says, and she starts touching my back and doing some things on my back, and she says, "Did this fall feel really weird to you?" And the words pop out of my mouth. "Oh, I shifted into another dimension."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, where did that come from? Again, just popped right out of my mouth. She says, yeah, you shifted into another dimension. And did it feel like somebody pushed you? And as soon as she said that it clicked. It was like, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like I tripped on something maybe a centimeter high. I could not catch myself. I felt like this inevitability, like shocking forward. So she says, yeah, somebody pushed you. And then it popped, I knew it was the Ashtar command because I'd been initiated from the access granted thing. And, from my work with Kat, her saying, oh, the Ashtar command is coming to work with you. So they took the opportunity while I was running to shove me into another dimension, to pop me out of my body so they could real quick and shift things around in my physical sphere to be compatible with these new energies that are coming through. Wow. Yeah. So
that's wild.
Right. I took a couple of days. I felt really awful for a couple of days. Again, didn't sprain anything. I didn't hurt myself, but I felt awful. I was having healing crisis from this. And then I was fine.
Wow. It's funny you share that. One of my kind of premium clients that I'm working with in a galactic capacity just tripped and fell in a run last weekend.
Did somebody push him too?
I don't know. I'll actually have to ask her if she felt like she got pushed. It's so interesting. Yeah, wild. You touched on something there that I think is really cool, and I think is a big part of what is so exciting about the work that both of you do and the work that I'm doing as well, which is Okay, so this is what I love about your podcast. This is what I love about your content. This is what I love about what the Shaman Sisters do. You are not doing the Shaman Sisters podcast just talking about plant medicine. I mean,
No.
right.
We actually haven't really talked that much about plant medicine.
Like, not at all.
That's remarkable. So the reason why that's so remarkable is because for over 10 years, I've seen people constantly trying to take the work that happens in plant medicine ceremonies and recreate some of those experiences without the medicine. I feel like almost not every, but like 80%, 90% of the shamans and shamanistas that I've talked to in some way are trying to make an effort to recreate the work without the need of the medicine. And they're working with the medicine to get the instructions, get the downloads, and to be able to do it. What I love about what you both are doing with your mediumship opening, with your channeling work, and what we're doing with Access Granted and our future ascension events that we have on the horizon is that we're literally doing that very thing. People are having the same or sometimes even more intense levels of healing and clearing. We've had people who, we had someone in our last retreat, I'm not going to name names, but they had done over 100 ayahuasca ceremonies to get at this trauma that they couldn't get at. I'm sure it assisted him getting closer and closer and closer. Then during the experience, he was able to find it. It was monumental. So all of those ceremonies couldn't get it, and then in this container was able to. Now I don't think this is better than that. I think they were working synergistically. I think it was compounding in its effect, but it's amazing that we are utilizing a form of consciousness technology that is catalyzing these kinds of opening and awakening, and then immediately giving someone like you the ability to interface with these energies and have these experiences. That's just phenomenal. I think it's so cool, and it's absolutely cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to add in to Michelle's story is that when she was on my table, one of the things that came through was that they were actually going to help her with some of her business stuff, with some stuff that had to do with money. And so one of the first channelings that she did was that they were actually telling her, this is the package you're going to offer. This is how much it's going to cost.
Oh, wow.
And then, I think we talked yesterday and she had just sold somebody into the new package. And
yes.
2 right away.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing like a nice galactic package.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations. That's massive. I love that.
Thank you. And Kat, was that you that during our session you were saying, oh yeah, because animals don't know shit about marketing. Right. Where I work so strongly with animal guides and forest guides and all the earthy stuff, but they don't know anything about running a business, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, and the Galactics, I believe, very much do, because they're masters of just energy exchange. They love the creation of energy exchange. And in fact, I believe that one of their passions is generating energy that can be exchanged out of the 0-point quantum field. Mm-hmm. They know how to create something from nothing. That is a huge element of their specialty, because that is, I think, really what this whole journey is about. It's about us creating a novel emergence of something that didn't exist before out of what is. And so, they are specialists of that, and they can assist a lot. I've got about 10 more minutes. Okay. So anything else you want to touch on in our little final window? And I'll say that with the caveat, we have to do this again sooner than later.
Yes, please. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you.
Amateo, in the last few minutes, there's so many things I want you to talk about. I mean, I would love, what can we say? I would love for you just to kind of give us a little bit of information on the primary being that you communicate with the channel, and how that's shown up for you.
I love that. So when I was first getting trained as a channel, I I wasn't actually guided to the extent that I guide other people, but it was very clear that I should channel my oversoul first, my higher self. And when I teach people how to channel, once we get through some of the planetary connections, it's like, that's your go-to. You know, don't try to, I usually say, like, don't play hello operator with the universe. Like, you don't want to plug into everything. You know, this isn't a buffet of consciousness. That's not the idea. And you know, certain mediums have that ability to have a much more diverse color palette. But you'll see a lot of people when they're starting out, you know, they're trying to channel everything under the sun, quite literally. And I think that that's a little overambitious. I think that it's important to zero in on a couple things first. But it's also part of the process, and it's all hunky-dory when it's, you know, we all go through our own individual processes, and it's okay. It's all welcome. But for me, I was channeling my higher self, and I would bring my higher self into my body through the techniques, and then boom, this being just showed up. And every time I did the technique, it just was there. It was infallible, ever present, always consistent, unquestionably there. So I was, you know, it brought into this, well, who are you, or where are you from? You know, it's kind of the quintessential, it's like a dating app for aliens. I was like, you know, age, sex, location. You know, and it was like 300 years in the future, male extraterrestrial who's actually deeply related to me from the Sirius star system, who is part of the Kantarian race, which is a Syrian Eshkani hybrid race. And they are have a blue tint, very elegant features, a little bit taller than the traditional grays. They have a little bit more defined features, have a bit more facial structure, less kind of flat-faced. And this being is a communications specialist. So this is information that through years and years of channeling, I have assembled. It's not something I got immediately. This being, Ratava is his name, Ratava, the Kantarian, is a communications specialist who not only focuses on contact, but does work on contact, but focuses primarily on communications with different evolving civilizations and beings. And he's in touch with me because we share a higher self. We are actually connected to the same higher self, and we have a genetic relationship. They're really here to do a lot of the things that we touched on, you know, to usher in humanity into a new age, help us create higher wisdom. He works a lot with what they call frames or lenses of perspective, meaning that if we can upgrade the angle of our perspective, then we can change our consciousness, which will alter our vibration and have us work in a more unified principle with reality. And through that unified principle, Ratava, similar to myself, we are all part of the ancient lineage of the family of Ra, which goes far beyond Egypt. They are some of kind of the OGs of cosmic consciousness in this local universe, who are always focused on reinstating and remembering and reinforcing the principalities of oneness at every level of existence, thought, belief, and innovation. And that's really their purpose here, and all of their messages and the consulting that I do with people is all about bringing the technology of oneness to everything that they are being and everything that they are creating.
Amazing, thank you. And I've had the pleasure of being present for quite a few channelings of Ratava, and it's super powerful and illuminating, and it just feels like such a blessing. And also, I would say like a coming home. It does. It feels like, oh, we're going to our family reunion of like super evolved, intelligent people who would never be in our real family.
Right, it's like a galactic barbecue or something on the beach.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Amateo. I know you have to go. Can you just tell everyone where you can be found? I know it's like on a beach in Mexico right now, but
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, if someone listens to this and they want to connect, I'm a busy person, but I'm also an available person. So feel free to find me on Facebook and Instagram, Amateo Ra. As far as I know, I'm the only Amateo Ra out there. So you can look me up and find me pretty easy on any of the traditional social media platforms, including YouTube. You can find our company at avantterra.com. That's Avant Terra, where we are working to help visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, really step up to usher in this new renaissance to create a new earth that is coming online as we speak. And we run a mastermind of these high-level visionaries and entrepreneurs that Kat, I know that we get to collaborate and co-create on. And we also run Access Granted, which is an exceptional retreat where we do support visionary leaders open up to this new form of consciousness. You've heard a lot about that retreat today, since both of these wonderful women were contributors to that experience. We do have those coming up in the future, and stay tuned. We are working on some large-scale ascension events where we're.
I just have to say, which is when I first started channeling, and I was having contact with these beings. They kept just telling me over and over, and I would have visions of these events that I was going to be part of. So it feels like finally, so many years later, coming full circle in this relationship with you, Amateo, to be able to be a part of those events.
Fuck, man, me too. It makes me so excited. Man, it's like 8 years since I think I first got the visions.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a bit more than that for me. So
wow,
I'm super excited.
Yeah,
long time coming. Yeah,
long time coming. I mean, I think we've just been doing the work to be able to be ready for it, to do it right, and for the energy and the people to be ready. So it's a blessing. I see both of you as contributors to that platform, as and co-creators at the deep level as it starts to rise up. But this is, right now we're working on putting a lot of systems in place to bring together high levels and visionaries, and to be honest, just generate more funding, because these high level events, they are not cheap. They are expensive.
and worth every penny and more.
That's right. That's right. And really, to produce, it's quite a production at the level at which we are looking to do this, because we want, if I want to spare no expense when it comes to creating these experiences, so that it can be integral and open consciousness in all ways, and to have a massive team of support to assist people. But this is coming, and we are building it. We are the pioneers of this. It's already happening. I've been in this world for years doing these events, over 8 years that we've been doing transformational leadership events with high level awakening and healing. But what is going to come is unlike anything the world has seen. And I'm very excited to be surrounded by so many brilliant and beautiful lights, and to be co-creating this together. It's a huge gift, and look out, it's on the way. This technology is arriving, and it's going to change the face of humanity.
Awesome. Can I come play?
Oh, 100%. You get a special all access pass.
Awesome. I absolutely, whatever you need for support, I'm there, because this is truly amazing work. So
it's going to take a lot of people, it's a concerted effort to do this and do this right. And we need all of the powerful healers that we can get. We need people who are clean and integrity and don't, muddle in things or meddle in things unnecessarily. And I just have to say to your audience and to anyone who's listening to this, you both are stellar. Your level of integrity, the quality of what you bring through is not only very trusted by me, but it's trusted by the highest level spiritual people that I know. And I am actively, sending people to Kat. Now that Michelle, you and I connected, this is just the beginning. I just can't say enough about your work. If people are listeners, get involved. You investing with either of these women will single-handedly reshape the trajectory of your life and help you overcome the deepest issues that have held you back and open you to things that you never thought were possible. And I can't speak highly enough about your work. I'm just one of your biggest fans, and it's an honor to play.
Thank you, Amateo. Thank you. / both of us. If people want to work with Kat and me together, we love doing that.
Yeah.
That's all welcome.
Yeah. Amateo, thank you so much. I want to honor your time. It is such a joy to have you here on our show. We are so grateful. And, speaking for myself, I know Kat is super happy to have you here. I'm just over the moon delighted. I love your work. I'm a big fan. And it's so fun to drop in and talk about this with you. I loved meeting you in person, and I cannot wait to see where your work goes and where our work goes together, etc. So thank you so much.
Thank you, darling. This has been I was looking forward to this for weeks. So this has been an absolute joy.
Me too. Yay. Wonderful. Thank you. To our viewers, if you want to catch up on any previous episodes, you can go to our YouTube channel, Shaman Sister Sessions. You can also find us on Facebook of the same name, Shaman Sister Sessions. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas that you want to hear us talk about, or any revelations or galactivations that are coming up as a result of this episode or others, send us an email, shamansistersessions@gmail.com. Of course, the offer is always open for you to work with me and Kat, because we love that. So contact us if you like about our special 3-session package, one with me, one with Kat, and one with both of us together, because we love it. And as Amateo so eloquently put, your life will never be the same. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.